Sarinya Srisakul was the New York City Fire Department's first Asian American female firefighter when she joined in 2005. She is now a lieutenant in the department and also served as the president of the United Women Firefighters Association for 6 years. Sarinya is born and bred New Yorker, but her parents came to the United States from Thailand. She joins me today to discuss her family's immigration story, her career in public service, the need for diversity in the fire department, and what she is doing to combat the uptick in Asian hate crimes in the United States. Thank you for joining me, Sarinya. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So, what's your family's immigration story?
My parents both immigrated here from Thailand in the late 70s. And my mom came here on a work visa because there was a nursing shortage at the time. And growing up in the Thai American community in New York, all of my Thai friends' mothers were nurses or restaurant owners. So it was just a very common theme for us. And my father came here and on a tourist visa, and he overstayed and was undocumented until he met my mother at a Thai American event and they got married. And he became a citizen like much later on. In the first election that he voted in was 2000.
Do they still live in New York now?
Unfortunately, my mother passed away when I was in high school, but my father moved back to Thailand. Actually, once I joined the fire department, he felt like once I had my career that he didn't have to worry about me. And so he was going to live his retired life but back in Thailand. And obviously the American currency will afford him a better lifestyle there than if he stayed here.
When you joined the fire department in 2005, did you understand or realize that you were going to be the first Asian woman to be a firefighter?
Yeah, I was told that by the other women firefighters when I was training to take the firefighter test. The organization I eventually became president of, it was a training program run by women firefighters for women firefighter candidates. So the women there, some of them were there since the 80s. Some of them were one of the original women firefighters of New York City. And they had this oral history of who was a part of the department. So they told me, you pass this test, you're going to be the first one. So I was really excited for that. But I also at the same time couldn't believe in 2005 that I would have been the first one.
What was the impetus to join the fire department?
I have a very odd story with that because I dropped out of art school and I became a community organizer. So two very different things. And when 9/11 hit, both of the industries that I was working in were funding wise were just obliterated. And 9/11 was a very significant moment in New York City. And the year after, in 2002, was when the fire department opened hiring. They only hire once every 4 years. And my friend took me to orientation. I never thought about being a firefighter. Even during 9/11, I didn't think, oh, I see me in that. And my friend took me to an orientation. That's where I met my first women firefighters. And I didn't see them as any different than me. And they were all different shapes and sizes. None of them were super bodybuilders or anything like that. They all look like regular women. And I was like, if they could do it, I could do it too. I come from a place where I want to help people. That's why I became a community organizer. I want to be out there and I want to create social change.
You've now been a firefighter now for 15 plus years. Has the significance of being the first female Asian firefighter sunk in over these 15 years?
I do think it is a huge accomplishment because even just being a woman, period, on this job, it's still 99% male. And it's still incredible to see any woman firefighter and to see an Asian woman firefighter where it's defying racial and gender stereotypes. I am proud to be that person, because it is helping other young Asian girls when they see me. Not that they necessarily have to follow my path, but that they can follow in whatever path that they choose. If they march to a different beat of their drums. Those of us Asians who are in the fire department now, we didn't have a lot of Asians that came on the job before us that like paved the way. There were, don't get me wrong, but like not in like great numbers. You know, I do attribute it to cultural stereotypes. I know in Thailand, firefighting isn't seen as this great profession. I tried to go to a firehouse in Bangkok, and I remember the taxi driver was like, why would you want to go to a firehouse? They're full of criminals. They like won't put a fire out in your neighborhood unless you pay them off. Like they're terrible people. Like here, that doesn't happen. Here, it's a, you know, good paying job. So there is a huge like cultural difference there. And you see it too. There's like a saying, if you work in Chinatown, there's either no fires or large fires, because whenever there's a small fire, the residents try to put it out themselves because they have this like fear of calling 911, and they only call us when it gets out of hand. They have this also the stereotype of paying us off, or that 911 is linked to immigration somehow, that they're like calling unnecessary attention from like outsiders to their place of living.
How do you break down these stereotypes?
It's an educational campaign that needs to be done. We need more of it. I mean, they do it. It's not at the level it should be. I'll give an example. Police department and the corrections department, whenever they do recruiting, for example, their recruiting flyers are in Chinese. And it's like, why? You have to speak English for this job. Why is it Chinese? They're like, oh, it's not for the kids. It's for the parents and the grandparents to sign on. So it says on this like flyer, like, here, mom and dad, this is how much money I'm going to be making. These are my benefits. This is like my retirement age. Like, and this is actually a really good job. And so because they've done that kind of outreach, they have much greater numbers for Asians on those two professions. I think 1 in 8 police officers in NYPD are Asian. There's a lot of more Asian correctional officers, which you wouldn't think, than firefighters. But, you know, we need Asian firefighters. You need that language component, that cultural competence to better serve New York City.
But the great majority is still white male.
Yeah, but there was a recent racial justice lawsuit that de Blasio settled, that the recent hires, it's been a big uptick in increasing
What
racial minorities.
What have they done since that lawsuit?
There's a court order, so they have to do it. So that's one thing. And the numbers have to reflect the New York City population of people of color, which is around like 50-50. With the leadership, it has to come from us. Like the people who started the other racial justice lawsuit were members of the fire department, and they got, you know, the Vulcan Society started the lawsuit, the Black Firefighters group. And so the president at the time, he got a lot of flack for it. And when other people who don't want to rock the boat see that, they're not going to challenge the authority figure, which is like our employer. I challenged them when I was president of the women's group, and I had to pay for those consequences.
How did you pay for it?
You know, there are some people who do admire me and agree with me, but then the large group, most of the majority don't. Like, and it's like lots of rumors about me. Like, people stop talking to me after I've known them for like over 10 years, you know? And it was just like, oh, okay, like this is happening. You know, I'm not talking about my firehouse that I worked in for 14 years. You know, that was the price I had to pay for being vocal. And that's what it's like in these kinds of like work environments. When you are an activist, you go against the grain. It is a very conservative population. So yeah. I'm fine with it, because obviously like I like want to stand in the light of justice.
Has that changed, or is there still a problem to this day?
Oh, that's changed. Like I haven't had like that experience since I've been promoted. I had a great experience because I'm no longer president of the organization and no longer pushing that envelope. It's like gotten better for me. When I signed up, there were 25 women on the job. And when I started, I was like the 30th, around like 30th. And this is out of like 10,500. Now we have 116, but it didn't come because the fire department did a great job doing outreach and they were so kind and this and that. It came because we pushed the envelope, we challenged them. Like a lot of social change just doesn't come like naturally, you know what I mean? I mean, people celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day every year and pick and choose his quotes, but he was a pariah too during his time and was one of the most hated men in America. But people don't think of that because we enjoy the fruits of that hard labor. Just look at any of the social movements now and how like difficult it is like to, you know, challenge police brutality. You know, that's been, as long as Black people have been in America, like that's been a struggle.
I agree with you. And let me just ask you this question. As a woman in the firehouse, being probably the only woman there, were you treated equally on a general day-to-day basis?
In the beginning, that was when it was like the hardest in the beginning because they don't know what you're about. You get tested a lot. So a lot of younger guys, like that 5-year and less crew, didn't care as much that, you know, I'm a woman. It was more like some of the older guys, and not all of them. And that's changed a little bit now too because of the lawsuit. And I do have to say it's because of the culture. When you're new, you're like it's very similar to like a pledge at a frat where you are supposed to get tortured for your first year. Like you're the bottom feeder, like your first year. You know, I talked a lot about the negative stuff, but there are a lot of positive aspects to it. Largely, I'm very happy, and I'm happy that I chose like this career.
Some people may be saying, well, men will put out a fire, women will put out a fire. What's the difference? As long as our fire is put out, do we need women in the fire department?
We don't just do fires. And I'll give you an example. Like, you know, we go to medical calls. So when I was in the East Village working, so many times there were like women naked, passed out, and they set me in and they waited at the door and they're like, just radio us and tell us what you have. Or I covered her up and then they came in. Calls in women's locker rooms, women's bathrooms, medical calls. So like you need that. We go to like domestic violence, child abuse cases, like the face of a mother like with a sick baby and seeing me and being relieved, you know.
There's been an uptick in anti-Asian hate crime since COVID came out. Has it affected you personally?
It hasn't affected me. I never have been harassed on the street, but definitely heard of a lot of stories of people. For me personally, you know, it really bothered me, especially after the shooting in Atlanta. Never in my life have I seen like Asian women be targeted in a mass shooting. And so it was really just disturbing, the level of racism and misogyny and that combination. Personally, I decided to do a fundraiser to get self-defense tools in the hands of the AAPI community. I have this, it's called a Kubaton. It's a self-defense. I have these and I have this. It's a alarm. It's like this pin and it's like really loud. So people can go to my Instagram. It's SARINYYYA on Instagram. And all the information's on there. The proceeds from these keychains are going towards anti-racism organizing in the Asian community and for providing for self-defense tools for low-income and trans API people.
And lastly, are you living your American dream? Have you reached it?
Yeah, I feel like I really have, you know. I definitely am so grateful that my parents sacrificed all that they did so I am able to do what I've been doing. It doesn't get lost on me that I have it different than them. And just like speaking English without an accent, just like not having that like navigating like to cultures and learning how to be in this world, how much easier it is for me to be in this world. And especially when I go back to Thailand and see like where they came from and see how much like, you know, even though I've been an activist with like gender discrimination and things like that, it's a lot worse in Thailand. You know, women don't just become firefighters there. So I am extremely grateful for like being here and enjoying the privileges of having an American passport and all those things. And I totally empathize with all the people that come here to try to have a better life and to do the same for their families and for their children. It's really admirable. And this country was founded on that.
Lieutenant Sarinya Srisakul, New York City Fire Department, first Asian American female firefighter. Congratulations. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for keeping us safe here in New York City. And it was wonderful speaking with you and learning a little bit about you. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I had a fun time. Thank you.